Senate Committee on Agriculture, Food Production, and Outdoor Resources will come to order. Kyle, please call the roll.
Senators Bean.
Here.
Berger.
Here.
Bernstetter. Crawford.
Here.
Gregory. McCreary. Washington.
We have a quorum. I appreciate everyone who has traveled across the state to attend and participate in today's hearing. For those here to testify on legislation, please speak into the microphone, introduce yourself, and address your comments to the committee members. Please keep your comments relevant to the legislation. Once the testimony concludes, the committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions. Please complete the witness appearance form on the table and leave it on the table for committee minutes. And please silence your cell phones if you haven't already. We have 3 bills on the agenda today, but before we do that, we're going to have an order of business of introduction of guests. Senator Gregory.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So some people in the room today, some of the Jefferson City regulars might not recognize today, but I've got a Saline County Leadership of Tomorrow group here. So Saline County, back where I come from, Marshall, Missouri, they decided they need to get a leadership group started to hopefully fill those leadership positions, school boards, town elected, county elected, so on and so forth. And today they're kind of looking at state government a little bit. So if we can just make them feel welcome, I appreciate it.
We'll welcome the guests of the senators and welcome to the...
Raise your hands, please.
I'm assuming so, Senator. We will try to give you a lively committee today. So with that, like I said, we have 3 bills today. First up is Senate Bill 269, sponsored by Senator Trent. Senator Trent, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Curtis Trent, representing Senate District 20. Senate Bill 269 is a clarification on, I believe, the way that things should currently work, but sometimes don't. Essentially, there's when you're dealing with landfill permitting, you have a very long and complicated DNR process that you have to go through in order to do that. Which includes a preliminary application and then goes through the process until you get a final permit, which is issued at the end. What this bill would do is require that when that initial permit or when that initial application is put in and you begin the process, that is the landmark at which the rules sort of solidify. This is the process that you now go through in order to decide whether or not you're going to ultimately approve or not approve this project. And any subsequent changes to the rules, so like a local ordinance that goes into effect after the process has started, would not have a retroactive effect on that process. And the reason for this is I think pretty obvious. You invest millions and millions of dollars over the course of these kinds of projects, and if the rules change in the middle of that process, then you lose potentially all that investment that has been made, and ultimately you have no ability to get a project finally approved and then begin construction on it. And so I believe this is like an economic development issue where if investors who are looking at whether or not to try to construct projects in Missouri don't have this kind of certainty, then we will never have these kinds of projects built, and that ultimately will have all kinds of second-order impacts on our economy down the road, as these kinds of projects are necessary for the health and welfare of the state and economic development in the state. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
And I believe we've got some witnesses here, too.
Any questions for the senator? Seeing none, anybody here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 269? Please come forward.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Rocky Miller. I'm paid lobbyist for Presidio Environmental. Probably need to get that. I'm also a licensed professional engineer, and I've got decades of experience of permitting projects through the Missouri DNR. Very few people want a landfill as their neighbor, even though Missouri DNR has many stringent requirements to protect the neighbors and the environment. Senate Bill 269 is needed, unfortunately, to correct a misinterpretation that staff under a previous administration of DNR has made. When making an application to DNR, the applicant must be protected from zoning or regulations that are put up to block the project. This protection has been in statute and rule for many years. However, misinterpretation has allowed a blocking action to this long-standing process. Senate Bill 269 clarifies something that should not need to be clarified. However, politics has raised its ugly head to block progress and to make our trash rates skyrocket and stifle our economic growth. Large civil projects are not something a lot of people want near their land. But currently, we need things like sewer, roads, utilities, etc. For the greater good of the public, these items can be strictly controlled, but they need to be allowed when necessary. Senate Bill 269 allows this to continue as it was originally intended and previously interpreted. Thank you.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
I have one question. Was my driving all right the other day?
Did I run by you?
You're
Oh, yeah.
fine.
Well, here, Senator, I was actually by your house Tuesday.
Everything all right?
It looks good. Looks
All right,
good.
Thank you, sir. Anybody here else in favor of Senate Bill 269, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Doug Nelson, Clarkston Nelson, here on behalf today of Derek Stanley, interested person in regard to this proposed landfill. Really, the aim with this bill is to try to clarify what we already believe the section allows for, but for an interpretation by the Department of Natural Resources, that we don't want to have other companies caught in this situation that we're in right now. Our folks started looking at property in the summer of 2019. They landed on this particular site in Pettis County in 2020, and they started buying the land and getting exclusive options for it. And in August of, or January of 21, they filed their preliminary site application with the Department of Geology and Land Survey in Rolla, and that started the process. And that got approved, and then they go into a detailed site investigation, and eventually DGOS certifies that. Then the next step is to go to the Department of Natural Resources for the construction portion, and then obviously at the end, the operating portion of the process. So it's a rigorous process. It takes generally 5 to 10 years to do this process. But in February of 22, a change in Pettis County local government and the commission created an ordinance that was passed that has since led to lawsuits that would restrict our client's ability to get the permit and move the setback from a half mile to 3 miles. It basically put local government decision over state decision, because what has happened now is going through this process, the department, under this particular section, 260.003, is indicating that this controls, so therefore they can't issue the ultimate permit. We're at the end of the process. We would, but for this particular interpretation, have our operating permit to begin operation. And that's relevant in this state because I think in this particular area, under a Mid-America Regional Committee report in January of 24, we have 7 landfills that serve this area. 4 of those are in Kansas with 78% capacity, 3 of those in Missouri with 22% capacity. At the end of the day, we're going to need landfills, and I know they're not the most attractive thing to talk about, but from a business development perspective, as the senator indicated, they're necessary. And in the last 20 years, there's been 9 applications for landfills in the state, and 0 have been approved. I mean, DNR runs a rigorous process, and it costs millions of dollars, and it takes a lot of work. And I think the bottom line in conclusion is this interpretation of this particular statute, and I would argue that it could be interpreted differently, but the department has that discretion, and they've made that decision. But in essence, what has occurred is the state has given local government ultimate veto authority over these types of decisions. And that is not just landfills, it's solid waste transfer stations and its disposal areas. So with that testimony, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Next up in favor, Senate Bill 269.
Good morning. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Dan Kleinsorge. I'm the Executive Director of Infra, representing the state's construction aggregates industry. Senate Bill 269 strikes my members as a great idea. When a company applies for a permit, they shouldn't have to worry about local rules shifting under them. And having reviewed the bill, my environmental committee recommended that I come testify in favor. So I would be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony.
Thank you.
Next up in favor, Senate Bill 269.
Good morning. Matthew Smith with Associated Industries of Missouri. I want to go on record of support of this bill. This bill provides an extra layer of protection for essential industries across Missouri. And once a project's application has been submitted, it should not be able to be canceled and should be given time to be approved. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony.
Thank you.
Next up in favor, Senate Bill 269.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Brent Hemphill. I'm here on behalf of the Missouri Pork Association. I believe this chapter refers to all permits by the department. And as you know, over the years, we've had local political subdivisions attempt to regulate agricultural. So we are supportive of this bill because of the broadness of it. So we do believe a lot of our members go and borrow a lot of money, go through the process of trying to acquire a construction permit. And then when we get into the process of operating, we would be very concerned about local prohibitions that would allow that project to move forward. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Next up in favor, Senate Bill 269.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Jacob Knable with Missouri Corn Growers Association. We would like to go on the record in support of Senate Bill 269. Obviously, our pork producers are a huge market for corn in the state of Missouri, so for reasons previously stated, we would like to go on the record in support of this legislation. With that, be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Next up in favor is Senate Bill 269.
Thank you. All right, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Ben Travelis with Missouri Soybean. For the reasons explained for the Livestock Association and that type of thing, we would also like to go on record in support. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Next up in favor to Senate Bill 269. Seeing none, anybody here not in favor of Senate Bill 269? Seeing none, anybody here for informational purposes on Senate Bill 269? Seeing none, Senator, do you have any closing comments?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the members of the committee for their evaluation of this.
Thank you. That concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 269. Next up is Senate Bill 315, sponsored by Senator Black. Senator Black, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Senator and committee, for hearing this bill this morning. It shows how good a legislator I am. I've been working on this since I was in the House several years ago, and one person that was part of your group up there helped me work on this to get it ready when I was in the House. This deals with the State Fair Commission. Most of you sitting there know my interest in that. The State Fair, as well as my service on the State Fair Foundation. I'll put my phone out in case Lowell Moeller texts me during this, because we have to discuss this every time. When I reference him, for those of you that do know Lowell, you know he was the one that helped put this in to play many, many years ago, and he will be seated at my table at Kaffner, so I'm sure him and Joanne will discuss this again. What does this bill do? Currently on the State Fair Commission are 9 commissioners put on by the governor, but as you read down through here, what I have done is gotten rid of, if I can get this accomplished, several of the restrictions. This person's got to fit this slot. This person's got to fit this slot. This person's got to fit this slot. And I realize for the governor's office and for the people that care about the state fair, at the time there was a reason probably to do that. As this was beginning, the commission was trying to get support around the state. But we've made it to a place sometimes this gets in the way of putting good people on the State Fair Commission. And no, I'm not weighing on State Fair Commission. this gets rid of those restrictions. Sometimes we have too many. The other part wasn't helped by a person sitting up there with you today, changing it to 12 members. Why did I decide to do that about 2 years ago in this legislation? Some of you know we're working on great expansion at the fairgrounds, and with that great expansion, the foundation and commission have become much more cohesive in the last few years. Senator Crawford been around when that wasn't necessarily always true. Much more cohesive, but with that growth that's expected when we bought the extra land and the other things there, coming up trying to get people to volunteer, donate their funds and et cetera. 12 members on that, like the expansion that happened with the foundation, I believe are important in the near future for this expansion at Fairgrounds. So that's why I made that choice. We're getting rid of positions like you gotta be a farmer, you gotta be this, you gotta be that. We also, it gets brought up every time, well, I've gotten rid of the party affiliation part of it. Hopefully this doesn't get recorded. It doesn't get recorded when I talk, right? The people that serve on that board that are Democrats, independents, some of you may not know, I'm in the Republican Party. When we get to the fair and go to work there, you don't see any difference at all. And as a matter of fact, one of the very strong Democrats there's also come from a Hereford farm, so I go to his house and visit him. Hopefully that doesn't make anybody mad, and we've become very good friends over the years as well. I don't see that that's going to make the Fair Commission successful if we have that number on there. I don't think it makes any difference. If the governor changed one of these days, and I'll probably be alive whenever we have a change, it'll be gone, and there's not any need of that. Then the last part was no more than 3 commissioners from any congressional district. Right now, the limit is 2. The reason why I put 3 there, because of where the fair is located at, as long as it stays in Sedalia, so as long as that stays 4th congressional district, those people have they care about it more because it's in their backyard. So I think that it's okay for them to have 3 people from close to Pettis County serve on this board. Good time for me to shut up, quit filibustering my thing, but you really don't need to ask questions. It's a good deal. I'd come up with it, along with somebody setting up there.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for the senator? Senator Washington, do you have a question?
I have fiscal oversight, so when he leaves, I need to leave. It's a good idea, Senator. We discuss this. One of these days, you'll probably be on the commission.
We have to ask you something because you told us not to. No, seriously, how do we, so it's just 12 members and the governor picks out 12?
Yes.
So how do we
Today it's
guarantee,
9.
but how do we guarantee like a diversity of the population of our state? As you so eloquently pointed out, to have a Democrat or an independent or, make sure that we have some people from throughout the entire state.
There are people in my previous career that thought I had power enough to put people on the commission. I understand that in the livestock showing business, and I don't have that power, and I don't have any more today. I am getting to the answer. I've just not ever seen, while I've watched this for 40 years, the commission, Carrie's, my wife's not listening now that you know, and her first fair was in 1963, and she slept there during the fair ever since then, so that can start everybody figure out how old she is. And our family has cared about this, and the commission all the way through, and I just don't see that a diversity's been a problem. If somebody was put forward, in my knowledge, it was just like any other commission site like this, that there's no, I don't see where you can have a bias one way or another to be able to support that fair, and I don't think anybody gets kicked out for any particular reason. I think they would even accept somebody like me if I wanted to, but I don't.
Any other questions for the senator? Senator, a quick comment. And for the record, I was 23. I'm pretty sure when the picture was taken, so about 30 years ago. But I have a picture you might like to see of us all dove hunting in the Boot Hill, and Lowell Moeller is in that picture, and Senator Sidney Johnson is in that.
Oh, Sydney's in that
So,
too.
Anyway,
Wow.
anybody here testify in support of Senate Bill 315, please come forward. Seeing none, anybody here in opposition of Senate Bill 315? Seeing none, anybody here for informational purposes for Senate Bill 315? Seeing none, Senator, do you have any closing comments?
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. That concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 315. Last bill for today is Senate Bill 466, sponsored by Senator Gregory. Senator Gregory, the floor is yours.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, for the record, State Senator Curtis Gregory, 21st District. Before you today is Senate Bill 466. I don't think there's any point in beleaguering the bill, being you probably heard, all right, I know you heard identical testimony last week from Mr. Chairman up there, but just for the record, this bill is going to differ a little bit in file, but I think we're going to end up in the same place. It's going to eliminate the sunsets and all of the agricultural tax credit provisions that we have in it. So just for that list, wood energy tax credit, meat processing facilities investment tax credit, ethanol retail and distributor tax credit, biodiesel retail and distributor tax credit, biodiesel producer tax credit, the urban farm investment tax credit, rolling stock tax credit, which that's rail cars. So we got the rolling stock, rail cars, next generation cooperative incentive tax credit, agricultural products utilization contributor tax credit, and specialty crop tax credit. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the senator? Seeing none, anybody here in support of Senate Bill 466, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Jacob Knable again with Missouri Corn Growers Association. We'd like to go on the record in support of Senate Bill 466. I was here last week testifying, and for similar reasons, we'd like to go on the record in support of this bill as well. I do believe there's a couple of differences with some technical corrections that some people behind me would likely explain, but I'd just like to reiterate our support for programs such as the Ethanol Retailers Incentive Tax Credit as well as the New Gen Cooperative Incentive Tax Credit, which have been very instrumental for us establishing ethanol plants here in the state of Missouri, a huge corn market. And I think this bill is really about just long-term certainty. A lot of these projects that utilize these programs are multi-year projects that take several years to get their feet off the ground. And so we'd like long-term certainty that these incentives will be around so that people are willing to make those investments. With that, be happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up in favor of Senate Bill 466, please come forward.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Ben Travels again with Missouri Soybean Association here to testify in support of this legislation. I appreciate Senator Gregory bringing this forward. Also appreciate Senator Breen bringing his bill forward as well. There are a couple of technical corrections that we've worked with both senators on for the biodiesel ones, specifically changing an "and" to an "or" to ensure that off-road diesel does qualify. We had conversations with the Department of Revenue prior to session, and that was a technical mishap when we passed this last time. So appreciate working with both senators to get that fixed.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up in favor of Senate Bill 466.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jason Zamkus. I'm here on behalf of the Missouri Renewable Fuels Association. Both the New Gen Cooperative and Ag Utilization Tax Credit programs have been around since 1999, and over that time they've proven to provide a guaranteed rate of return to the state, and without them we wouldn't have the ethanol industry that we do today. For that reason, we'd like to go on record in support. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up in favor of Senate Bill 466.
Mr. Chairman, Shannon Cooper today representing the Missouri Cattlemen's Association, the Missouri Forest Products Association, as well as the Railway Supply Institute, and take a few minutes, Senator McCreary, to answer your questions from last week. You asked about some withholds in prior years. Nancy and I have the opportunity to represent two of the more unique programs in this bill. On the rolling stock tax credit, I think in the years of 17, 20, maybe 21, there were withholds to that program. Those were basically done due to the economic uncertainty in the state at that time. Our members realized that and begrudgingly did not fight that. We recognized the situation the state was in. The wood energy tax credit, we had to withhold 1 year for a similar situation, and then 2 other years due to the application deadline not being printed on the application. Our members actually did not apply in time, and this gets very confusing, but we actually had to move the money to the supplemental budget to make those individuals whole. Since then, we've worked with the department to make sure that the deadline is very clear on the application, and hopefully that's resolved. But if anyone has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next up in favor of Senate Bill 466, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mark Figgenbaum with Missouri Farm Bureau testifying in favor of SB 466 for the same reasons as last week, and we'd also like to add a Chapter 148 to the meat processing tax credit for similar reasons as last week. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up in favor of Senate Bill 466.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tony Benz representing the Missouri Agribusiness Association. We'd like to go on record in support of Senate Bill 466 and would like to thank the Senator for sponsoring the bill.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up in favor of Senate Bill 466.
Good morning. Matthew Smith with Associated Industries of Missouri. Just want to go on record of support of this bill, specifically for the wood energy tax credit, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up in favor of Senate Bill 466. Seeing none, anybody here not in favor of Senate Bill 466? Seeing none, anybody here for informational purposes only? Please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Trinity Crouch, Legislative Director for Missouri Department of Agriculture.
And I'm Jill Wood. I'm Executive Director of Missouri Ag and Small Business Development Authority.
We are here for informational purposes. Similar to last week, Senate Bill 466 contains 5 tax credits that are housed under the Department of Agriculture under the authority of MASBDA. We're happy to answer any questions on any of our programs.
Any questions for these witnesses? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody here for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Senator, do you have any closing comments?
I just appreciate the committee's consideration of legislation. And as I mentioned earlier, we got the group from Saline County here. We also happen to have one of the most successful farmer-owned ethanol plants in Multibin, Mid-Missouri Energy. So I have to mention that. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. That concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 466. I make a motion we move into executive session. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are in executive session. I make a motion to take up Senate Bill 157 relating to release of certain confidential information by Missouri Geological Survey, sponsored by Senator Henderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senate Bill 157 is before the committee. I make a motion to vote Senate Bill 157 out of committee. Do pass. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion on Senate Bill 157? Senator McCreary.
Thank you. I'm going to be a no on the bill this morning. I have some concerns with the bill, similar to the concerns I had in previous sessions. I'm willing to work with the sponsor between now and when it starts moving, but I just wanted to let folks know that I'm a no today and hoping to get to a yes by the time we get to the floor.
Thank you, Senator. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Kyle, please call the roll.
Senators Bean.
Aye.
Berger. Aye. Bernsketter. Crawford. Gregory. Aye. McCreary. No. Washington. No. 22.
By your vote of 3-2, Senate Bill 157 is voted out of committee. Do pass. I make a motion to take up Senate committee substitute for Senate Bill 30 relating to tax credits, sponsored by myself. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senate committee substitute for Senate Bill 30 is before the committee. Kyle, you want to explain the substitute?
Yes, Senate Bill 30, sponsored by the chairman, Senator Bean. What we heard last week regarding the tax credits, the sub removes the sunsets on the tax credit programs that were discussed today and last week, and also makes the technical changes that have been mentioned in testimony last week and today from the Soybean Association and Farm Bureau regarding the biodiesel tax credits and the meat processing tax credits that were mentioned in testimony. And those are the changes incorporated in Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 30.
Any discussion on the Senate Committee Substitute? Hearing none, I make a motion to adopt the committee substitute. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Substitute is adopted. I now make a motion to vote Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 30 out of committee. Do pass. Have a second.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Kyle, please call the roll.
Senators Bean.
Aye.
Berger. Aye. Bernsketter. Crawford. Gregory. Aye. McCreary. Aye. Washington. Aye.
By your vote of 5-0, Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 30 is voted out of committee. Do pass. Now I make a motion to take up Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 466 relating to agriculture tax credits, sponsored by Senator Gregory. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Nay. Motion carries. Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 466 is before the. Yeah. Do we have a substitute on this?
Yes.
Okay. Senate Bill 466 is for the committee, the Senate Committee Substitute. So, Kyle, please explain the substitute.
Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 466 that was just presented by Senator Gregory is identical to the substitute we just voted on for Senate Bill 30 from Senator Bean. The only difference between the two substitutes is the title of the bill. Senator Bean's title was just tax credits, a bill related to tax credits. Senator Gregory's title is a bill related to agricultural tax credits.
So now I'll make a motion to adopt the committee substitute. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? And for the record, we typically do wait 1 week, but since these are the same bills, you're hearing exactly the same bills, we felt it was fine to go ahead and vote these out. So any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. The Senate substitute is adopted. I now make a motion to vote Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 466 out of committee. Do pass. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Kyle, please call the roll.
Senators Bean.
Aye.
Berger. Aye. Bernsketter. Crawford. Gregory. Aye. McCreary. Aye. Washington. Aye.
By your vote of 5-0, Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 466 is voted out of committee. Do pass. I now make a motion we move out of executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. We are out of executive session. No further business coming for the committee. I move that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.